Good evening, everybody. Hello, world. Hi, everybody. Emma here from Sing Out Strong. It is wonderful to be back live with you on a Monday night. Um, Tonight, you are in here for a free taster of the Sing Out Strong course, Reading Music for Singers. Um, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Emma Rowlands. I am the founder of Sing Out Strong. I'm a composer, I'm a choral conductor, and for the last 6 months, I've been teaching this course called Reading Music for Singers, which I wrote during lockdown to help people. Well, I guess like you guys, people who are sitting at home and trying to desperately keep singing and work their way through virtual choir music, but without the support of a conductor in the room with you every week, which I know is really, really difficult for you guys as well. So the first thing I need to check is that you can hear me. Lena can hear me. Good evening, Lena. Long time no see. How are you? It's very, very nice to have you here. You don't need this, surely. You've been singing in choirs for years, haven't you? If anybody is watching me on Facebook, I would love it if you could write a comment and say good evening. I'm streaming on both. I'm on YouTube on the one on the one laptop, and I'm on Facebook on another. And I have to keep looking back and forth to make sure you can see me, and to make sure you can all actually ask questions. I'm going to type on our Facebook, and I'm going to hopefully somebody will reply and tell me if you can hear me. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Anyway, so oh, thank you, Lena. That's very, very kind. So YouTube is working really well, which is great. Facebook, I'm not getting your comments, which is slightly concerning if you're going to be asking me questions. But Kim, there we go. Kim Cox. Janet. Hi, Janet. Drop me a line, guys. Tell me where you are in the world. Oh, Monica. Fantastic. Eva, lovely. If at any trouble your one of your sort of streams drops out, you can hop over to Facebook or YouTube. So we're facebook.com slash sing out strong wellbeing, and on YouTube we are just we're youtube.com, then you have to do slash channel or slash c, and then we're just slash sing out strong without the wellbeing bit on that. So we've got the wellbeing added on the Facebook, but we haven't on the YouTube. Anyway, let's check what we're doing tonight. First of all, hi, Monica. Oh, there's all these names I recognize. This is lovely. First of all, this is what we're doing this evening. This is a free taster session of my beginner course in reading music for singers. So I've written this so that, like I said, people like you who are sitting at home desperately trying to learn virtual choir music, so that you've got a bit of a heads up and you can sort of almost teach yourself a little bit and help yourself out when you're struggling to get that rhythm that you didn't quite catch in rehearsal or all that kind of thing. I am running another series of the course starting May the 16th, which I will tell you more about later. So if you decide that you love this and it's really helpful, then you can, of course, sign up to take the course from May the 16th. That's a Sunday. It's one a week for 6 weeks, and it's with me on a Zoom, though. So that time we would be chatting back and forth, and you could ask questions. And it's almost like having a sort of tutor help you with it or something like that. Oh, there's loads of people. Coventry, Rhode Island, Worcester, UK. Ruth's really organised. Perth, Western Australia. Good morning over there. Malaysia, Norway. Oh, fantastic. One of my favourite things about teaching this course is the fact that I get an audience all around the world. I mean, that's my favorite thing about Sing Out Strong anyway, but particularly when I've been teaching the reading music course, I've had people in Australia and America and all over Europe. And it's been really great because we've been trading stories about how lockdown is going, and they've been telling me about their local choirs and all that kind of thing. And it's been nice to hear stories of when people have managed to sing together in a field, and then someone else says, no, we're going back into lockdown. And the big debate, of course, is, are the pubs open where you are? Let's get that right. That's a priority. There might be a bit of a delay on what I'm doing. So I understand you might type a question and I might need to reread it and come back to it a few moments later. So I'm hoping this will take us about an hour. But because of the delay and wonderful technical issues as they were, we might end up taking a bit longer, but that's fine. You need to have downloaded and ideally printed, or if not, you need to have on your phone the free PDF worksheet that I've made for this session. I'm going to pop the link right now in both of the chat boxes, because even if you haven't had time to spot it and print it out, you could open it on a different device, or you could have it on your phone in your hand, couldn't you? And while you watch me, or you could open another window. I won't get too offended. At the top of that page, that's a link to the Sing Out Strong website. And at the top of that page, there is a PDF and it says, are you taking part in the free taster session? If so, click here and download. And it's basically what I'm going to be reading to you and teaching you this evening. And let me check I've said everything I need to. Yeah, so finally, I've kind of amalgamated my first and second sessions that I normally do to give you an overall feel and to give you the real basics, so that even if you don't come and take the course afterwards, you've learned a bit of something tonight that you can actually use. So we're going to be covering how to name pitches, so actually reading them on the 5 lines of the musical stave, and we're going to be talking about basic note values, and that means note lengths, so that when you have a rhythm that you need a bit of help with, you can have a go at home at clapping it out. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. The other thing is, of course, I will be primarily using British terminology for this because we're in the UK, but I will also be using American terminology because I've had a lot of singers from the States take the course. And of course, if you're all doing virtual choirs, you could effectively have a conductor from anywhere across the world. Even if you're in Australia right now, you could be singing in an American choir, which I think that's a wonderful thing that has come out of this last very difficult year, is that we're able to make music with people around the world. But it does mean that you have to get used to their way of doing things and their terminology. So I'll try and go back and forth between, you know, British English and American English where I can, and just give me a nudge if I forget you or I forget to say something. Okay, and I'm drinking lots of water because you know I've got terrible throat trouble, so I'm lubricating as we go. Right. So glasses on. So hopefully by now you have all got a copy of the Reading Music for Singers beginner taster session in front of you. Sheila, you're just up the road from me. Hello. And I'm going to sort of read and explain and teach as we go. And there's a couple of exercises you can have a go at as we move through it this evening. So we've called this Let's Start at the Very Beginning, which now you're all going, a very good place to start. As Julie Andrews told us, absolutely, you have to start at the very beginning. So like I said, we're learning basic note names and values this evening. So in this taster lesson, you are going to learn to name the notes on the treble and bass clefs and to count the most common note values. This will help you better understand the music that is sent to you at home, either by me or some other virtual choir conductor, whoever you are singing with at the moment. So the first thing you've got is, this is typical music notation for a choir, okay? Just have a look at it. Tell me if it's something, I'm sure it is, it's something that you're familiar with seeing. You might not be able to read it yet, but it's certainly probably what you're being sent at home or what you're used to doing when you're in a choir practice. Okay, this piece is actually one of mine. It's called Farewell Blessing, and it is a piece that I'm hoping to do with Sing Out Strong in the summer before you all ask. So music notation tells you 2 things. First of all, which pitch to play or sing, and secondly, how long to hold it, because every note has both a pitch and a length, okay? The pitch means how high or low it is. So think about a piano where we've got high notes at one end and low notes at the other end. The pitch is which of those we're going to be doing, in your case, singing. And the length, otherwise known as the value, is how long we are going to sing that note, or you're going to play it, or you're going to hold it, okay? So part 1, starting with the pitches themselves. Music is written on a series of 5 parallel lines, which are called a stave in the UK or a staff in the States. You can place a note on any line or in any space, and in fact, you can place them above and beyond in both directions as well. But we're just going to start with the ones that are contained within those lines and spaces, pretty much. At the start of the stave, there is a symbol called a clef. There are 2 kinds that you will mainly see on your music. There are other kinds, we're not going into that. These are the 2 kinds you will see in your choir music. The first one is called the treble clef. That's the one that looks really curly and difficult to draw. And the other one that looks like a backwards C is called a bass clef. Okay? Turning the page. If you have a high voice, which is mostly female singers, but not exclusively, then you will usually follow music with a treble clef at the beginning, okay? Because that means we're going to be using middling and higher notes. I'm doing this because on my piano, the higher notes are towards my right, but it's really funny because one of my cameras is backwards and the other one isn't, so I'm like a mirror image of myself. If you have a low voice, which is mostly male singers, although we've got a lot of female tenors and sing out strong, then you will usually follow music with a bass clef at the start because it means we're primarily going to be using middling and lower notes. Okay? How do we name them? In Western music, so we're talking about Europe and America primarily, we use alphabet letters A to G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, to name the pitches, and then they repeat over and over again. So if you start at the bottom of my piano, you can go up the white keys, you can go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and on again, around and around until you run out of notes. And technically, you never really run out of notes because, as you know, we can't necessarily hear the frequencies, but sound gets higher and higher and higher. Anyway, we just name them A to G, and when we get to G, we start all over again. Luckily, there are a couple of tricks we use to remember which pitch A to G goes where on that stave, on that stuff that I told you about at the beginning, okay? So firstly, we're going to look at the treble clef. So point one here, the treble clef. The treble clef is also traditionally known as the G clef because the center of the spiral of the circle wraps itself around the position of the pitch that we call G. Okay. Now, I was never taught to find G and do it that way, but in some countries, I am aware that most people start. They get told immediately that G is around the center of that. So, firstly, sorry, say that again. The spiral wraps itself around the position of pitch G, and if you keep going through your alphabet, one letter at a time, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you can fill in all the note names. So, firstly, look at where the circle is. In the middle of that treble clef that I've drawn, a little diagram, you can see that the first note that I've labeled there for you, G, is in the same space. It's in the same exact line as it, the same distance up and down. Does that make sense? And then if you keep going, space, line, space, line, space, line, you go through that alphabet. So this time we're starting on G because it's a G clef, which means the next one wouldn't be H, it would be A. So you've got the G drawn for you, and then you go A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There's another A on the top. If you wanted to start at the G and go the other direction, you would go backwards. So you'd start with that G, F, E, D, C, B, A, G, and so on. Okay? So you just go up and down the alphabet backwards and forwards. To help us remember which line and which space correspond to which pitch, we use fun rhymes. Now, this is the bit you might remember as kids, if you ever did piano lessons and things as a child, you might remember some of these silly rhymes. But we're going to make up our own. Okay, because I like making it my own. So firstly, the treble clef. Now, look at this diagram, and what I've drawn there is the 5 notes that go on each of those 5 lines of the stave, okay? And they happen to be E, G, there's that G again on the second one with the middle of the spiral. B is the middle line, D is the 4th line, and F is the top line, okay? Oh, Kim, that's dedication. It's 2:10 a.m. No, that's fine. Please watch me on repeat. It'll still be here in the morning. Go to bed. Good night. Okay, so we're going to come up with a rhyme, and I want you to come up with your own and then tell me what they are in a minute. A rhyme that uses the letters E, G, B, D, F for the start of each word. So the boring one you probably remember from being a child doing music is every good boy deserves football, or favors if you're even more old-fashioned. Every good boy deserves football. Every E, good, G, boy, and so on, okay? But I want you to do something that means something to you. I want you to do a silly one that's more likely to stay in your memory than something that's a bit outdated that some random woman on the internet told you from the UK. Okay, so I would rather you came up with your own E, G, B, D, F. And then on the bottom of the page, there is another one, which is the note names, the pitch names for the spaces of the stave. And those are F, A, C, E. Now, the most obvious one for that is face in the space, because F-A-C-E spells face, and those are the 4 notes that sit in the spaces. But if you come up with a funny one for either of those, do tell me. E-G-B-D-F, I quite like every good burger deserves fries. That's always a nice one. It's a more modern one. Every good burger deserves fries. It taught you food for F. Every good boy deserves food. Boys and food. My son and food, absolutely. Yeah, every good boy deserves something. Well, how about every good burger deserves fries? We'll stick with the food theme here. And then F-A-C-E, face in the space. Okay, so write down something that means something to you. Let's turn over to the next page. On page 3, we are starting with the bass clef. Now it says, the bass clef is also known as the F clef because the dot at the top, I mean the sort of the big circular blob in the middle of the F clef, starts on the position of F. Okay, can you see that? So the first one that I've drawn is an F, which corresponds with the exact line where the center of that circle is. And then we go up again, going through our alphabet. So F goes to G, goes to A, goes to B, goes to C. And if we went backwards, it would be F, goes to E, goes to D, goes to C, and so on. And you would just go through the alphabet backwards. Okay? Here are the rhymes we need to create for the bass clef. So the rhymes in this case for the lines would be G, B, D, F, and A. I'm going to give you one here, which I really like. Grizzly bears don't fear anything. That's a nice silly one. Grizzly bears don't fear anything. And when I was teaching the reading music course before Christmas, I had a lovely group on a Monday night, which was primarily made up of American viewers because it works for the time difference for you guys. And so we had Great Britain doesn't fight America. That was a nice one. Great Britain doesn't fight America. Brackets anymore. Okay, and then at the bottom of that, we've got another one for the spaces, which is A-C-E-G. And of course, that's all cows eat grass. But please come up with something more interesting and tell me what it is, because I'm running out of inspiration for these. When I'm teaching this to kids, they look at me like I'm crazy. Anyway, so has anybody got one to share with me? A treble clef one you'd like to tell me? Or a bass clef one? Type it at some point. Or send it to me privately and I will read it out without embarrassing you. Thank you very much. Okay, so that is how you name the notes on the stave. And if you were to put the two next to each other with the bass clef stave underneath and the treble clef stave up above it, if you counted backwards from the top one and upwards from the bottom one, you would find they meet and they join in the middle. And so you can technically start all the way at the bottom, you can count all the way up through the bass clef, and then you can hop on your way over to the treble clef and you can keep going all the way up again and again. And that's what pianists do every time. We read both at the same time and our hands are moving. It's not like your one hand has to do all those notes and your other hand has to do those notes. We are allowed to cross over in between and move back and forth a bit. So they do, they meet in the middle. That's the easy bit. So if you've got rhymes for your bass clef and your treble clef, I recommend that you write them on a piece of paper and stick them on the wall somewhere, wherever it is that you're practicing your choir music. And also put it in the front of your choir folder so that when you do get back to singing in person again, if you get a piece of music in front of you, you can actually look and work out the name of the note you're singing. And sometimes the conductor will say, from the G at the start of the bar, and you go, which one's the G? Well, now you know. It's the one with the little circle around it. Okay, brilliant. That's the easy part done. So the second part we need to do is the note lengths. We also call them values. This means we can make rhythms because songs would be very dull indeed if all of the notes were the same length. So now that you know which pitch to sing, you need to know how long to hold it. Okay? These are the main note lengths or note values. Okay, the two words mean the same thing. The four main note lengths that you will come across regularly in your music are, first of all, The one that looks like a squashed circle without what we call a tail coming up from it. Okay, we in the UK, we call that a semibreve. Okay, we call that a semibreve. I'm going to do the UK terminology first, and then I'll come back and do the American and explain it. So we call that a semibreve. Next to that one, we have a circle, which I would call a white circle. It's not coloured in, and it has a tail going up the side. That's worth 2 beats, and we call that a minim. So if you've got a British conductor, they'll be talking about semibreves and minims. Next to that, we have a circle that is coloured in black. That's worth 1 beat, and we call it a crotchet. Okay, and then finally on the right, we have one that looks like a crotchet but with a little hook of a tail after it. That's worth half a beat, and we call that a quaver. Yes, in the UK we call it a quaver, just like we have a crisp called a quaver. Okay, those are the 4 most common. They are not the only ones that there are. Of course, there are many, many more combinations you can use, but those are the 4 basic ones you need to know. Now, how does it work in America? In America, I'm sure I've got lots of Americans following tonight because, like I said, the time difference is good for you guys. So in America, you have this thing called, I guess, called an ideal bath, where you think, wouldn't it be wonderful if all bars in the world had 4 beats in them? This is how my American music professor taught this to me. So wouldn't it be wonderful, yes, if all bars in the world had, I shouldn't even say bars, you guys call them measures. We call them bars, you call them measures. Wouldn't it be wonderful if every measure had 4 beats in it? And so if you put a 4-beat note in that, you call it a whole note because it takes up the whole of your 4-beat measure. Okay, kind of seems quite logical when you think of it. So if you've got 4 beats in your note, Americans, you have got a whole note. Then if you divide that into 2 equal parts and you have a 2-beat note and a 2-beat note, you call that a half note because it's taking up half of that bar each. Think of your pizza. You had a whole pizza, now you've divided it in half. So you got a half note, which is worth 2 beats. If you divide it in half again, you've now got 4 quarters. So you call it a quarter note. And then finally, if you divide it in half again, you've got 8 of them. You've got these half-beat notes. So you call them 8th notes. And yours does keep going. Your next smaller value would be 8 halved again. So you have a 16th note. And then that would be halved again. You'd have a 32nd note. I believe you don't call it a 32nd note. I think that would be quite confusing. You call it a 32nd note. So you guys are working in whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, 8th notes, 16th notes, and 32nd notes. We are working in semi-breves, minims. Yeah, I know, in the Netherlands, exactly. It really is very, very different wherever you are. And us in the UK, we're very, very stubborn. And we're going to stick with our semi-breves, minims, crotchets, quavers. And then we go into semi-quavers and demi-semi-quavers after that. And of course, don't forget, you might be in the UK anyway and singing with an American conductor, which is why it's really important for you to know all this terminology. Over the page, there is just a simple diagram for you to see how they are related. So imagine, if you will, at the top is the grandma. Okay, at the top is the grandma. I'm sorry, I can see there's a spammer commenting on Facebook. Somebody's trying to get inboxes and also, please ignore them. It's nothing to do with us. I'm not organized enough to type while I'm doing this, so you can just talk to me instead. Oh, thank you. Somebody's Marnie saying very useful. Good, brilliant. Okay, so the simple note tree at the top of page 4. Imagine that the single note at the top is your grandma, your grandmother, okay? And your grandmother had 2 children. So those are the minims or the half notes. And each of those had 2 children. So you're one of those, and you've got, say, a brother and 2 cousins. And then you all have 2 children, so we end up with 8. And then they all have 2 children, so you end up with 16 on the bottom. Okay, it's a nice simple way of looking at it. Think of it as a family tree for music, which is quite sweet, really. Under that, I've said there are a few more ways of writing notes that you will see on your choir music, and I'm going to show you some examples in a minute. Firstly, notes can be upside down. Obviously, they're not upside down. They're meant to be there, but they look like they're upside down once you've got used to seeing them the way I just taught it to you. So notes can be upside down, and that means that the tails are going in the other direction. So look at the 4 little examples there. I've drawn a quaver, which is an 8th note with the tail as it was before. And then I've drawn one with the tail coming down. By the way, notice that the little curve hook still goes the same direction. And then I've drawn a minim, a half note going the one way, and I've drawn one going the other way. The reason we have tails that are interchangeable up and down is because it depends where on the stave, on the staff, your note head, the circular bit, lies. So if it's right at the top and it's a higher note on it, the tail will come down. And if it's at the bottom, the tail will go up. We're trying to keep most of that note within the space of the stave because it's neater and it's easier to read at speed. So all sight reading, think about sight reading music, is we need to get information to you clearly as quickly as possible. So the notes, the note tails are kept within the sort of boundaries so they don't crash into other things. And so it's nice and neat and clear. The changeover point is the middle line because there are 5 lines. And on the middle line, it can go either way. It generally depends on what's going on around it. Okay. Oh, I like the grandma and the grandchildren. That's always a good one, isn't it? Okay, point 2. You can join 2 quavers together. You can also join 3 or 4 or 5, but you can join 2 and up to make them easier to read again. And in this case, we take off the 2 little individual hooks and we draw a straight line between them. They are both worth half a beat. And I'm going to pause there because this is where somebody always goes, how can something be worth half a beat? And I have to remind you that don't get into the habit of equating a beat in music with a second on a clock. Obviously, a second is what we're familiar with as counting a unit of time. But your beats in music can be very, very slow. Okay, it could be 1, 2, 3. If we're going at that speed, it's really easy to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And you see how I did 2 claps for every beat that I spoke. So those are your little half beats that are fitting as subdivisions of your main beat. Okay, so don't think that a half beat equals a half second. It does not. And then finally, point 3, you can add a dot after a note. And this adds on half of what is already there. It does not add on half a beat. You need to look at what you've already got and then add on half of that again. So this example I've done for you here, we've got a minim, a half note with a dot. A minim is worth 2. The dot adds on another half of that 2, which is 1. So 2 plus 1 equals 3. Okay. If we had a semi-breve or that magical whole note for our American friends, that would be worth 4. Putting a dot after it would add on half of 4, which is 2. So 4 plus 2, you would end up with a 6-beat note. Okay, and you can do that with any note value that you like. You just add on half of what is already there. There is no new name for that, by the way. We don't suddenly have a name for 3-beat notes. It's a minim with a dot, so we call it a dotted minim or a dotted half note. It doesn't get overcomplicated. So let's turn over to page 5. How are you all doing, ladies and gentlemen? I hope I've got some gentlemen watching. Seems to be female heavy normally, but that's okay. So at the top of page 5, I've put, here is that original choir music once again. Why would you do the dot instead of the actual notes? You want to make it as simple as possible. So rather than people having to count 2, then you would have to draw something called a tie to show that it has to still be held on for a following 1. And people would be quickly doing sums and going, there's a 2 and another 1 and another 1 and another 1. It would be easier to just go, you've got to wait for 3. Okay, or you've got to sing for 3, or you've got to be silent for 3. Make it clear, make it concise. Tell the singers and the instrumentalists as much information as you can up front. Okay, I hope that helps, Manny. So here is that original choir music again. Look at how the quavers are grouped together, how the 8th notes are grouped together in point 1. That's down on the piano score. Have a look at the 2 piano lines that are marked. Move your way along until you see the little number 1. And as you can see, they've grouped them in little 2s. So 2, 2 together, 1 and 2 together, 1 and 2 together. 2 and 2, 1 and 2 together, 1 and 2 together, 1 and 2 together. And they've made 3 distinct little clusters. We're not doing that right now, but that's because there are 3 beats in the bar. If you look at the very start of the music, thank you, Ruth. If you look at the very start of the music, can you see where it says 3/4? I know it's tiny. 3/4 means 3 beats in a bar. So those have been grouped in little 1/2 makes one of them, 1/2 makes beat 2, and 1/2 makes beat 3. Can you see how clearly it is broken down for you if you only know really what you're looking for? At point 2, I have just demonstrated how some notes can be upside down. So remember I told you that that middle one can go up or down depending on what's around it. So at point 2, the word you, the tail is going down because wherever just before it was also down. It looks tidy, doesn't it? It looks neat. And finally, at point 3, which is part, it's love, of loving, I have shown you a dotted minim, a dotted half note in action, okay? Dotted half note, 3 beat note in action there. Right, so, of course, we don't always want to be singing. Sometimes we want to be silent. Well, nobody wants to be silent, you know what I mean. Especially in a choir, it's really important that we incorporate moments of silence in a choir. For example, because you might need to be quiet while the other section or another section is singing. So the sopranos, you're going to take a time out. The altos, it's your moment to shine. Okay, this is where the altos all cheer because the altos never get the tune. So in this case, we're going to need to use rests. Yeah, rests can give you a moment's break in your melody and whatever you're singing, but it can also give you a big period of silence if you need it. So it says underneath, of course, every note value has a corresponding rest. This means that the singer or instrumentalist should not play or sing, okay? Do not make any noise. So these are the 4 main corresponding rests. Firstly, the 4-beat semi-breve or whole note rest. That looks like a little rectangle that just hangs down from the second line. Then we have the rest for the 2 beats, which is the minim or the half note. That's a rectangle again, but it sits on the line. Claire, you're obviously an alto. I'm very, stick with me. I give my altos the tune, don't worry. People often ask me, how do you remember which is the 4 beats and which is the 2? Because they look so familiar and they're easy to get mixed up, aren't they? Because one is just hanging and one is sitting. And I always say, imagine that the 4 beat started life sitting on the line, but it was so heavy, it slipped and now it's hanging under. Okay, it's sunk into the mud or into the music. So the 4 hangs underneath, but the 2 is lighter because it's only worth 2, so it sits on the line on top. After that, we have a 1-beat rest, which is our crotchet or your quarter note. That's the one nobody can draw. So think of it not as a lightning bolt. My kids call it a Harry Potter scar. Think of it as like an elongated Z shape, a Z shape, with a hook on the bottom, or like a sort of backwards C on the bottom. So a long Z, long zigzag, and a hook. Okay? And then the last one, the one that kind of looks like a curly number 7, that is the half-beat rest. That's the quaver or the 8th note. If you wanted to do a rest for a semi-quaver, you would add on another hook to it. This is where the British terminology really helps. So quaver is 1 word, and our rest is a number 7 with 1 little curve. Semi-quaver, 2 words, and the rest has 2 little hooks. Demi-semi-quaver, 3 words, and the rest has 3 little hooks. It looks like a really tall number 7 with 2 extra little hooks on it. And of course, you can add a dot in the same way that we did with the note values, the note lengths. You can add a dot to a rest as well. So there's your example of a 4-beat rest, getting a dot. 4 plus 2 is 6. That's a dotted semi-breve or a dotted whole note. Remember, no fiddling around with the terminology at this point. Then we've got a 3-beat rest, dotted minim or dotted half note, a 1.5-beat rest, dotted crotchet or dotted quarter note, and then finally a 3/4 beat rest, which is a dotted quaver or a dotted 8th note. And again, you can do 3/4 of a beat if your beat is sufficiently slow. Brilliant. Okay, we're doing well. Stick with me, everybody. We're going to do some exercises on the next page. So the first one, exercise 1. This is the rhythm for the song Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. It uses note values of just 1 beat or 2 beats. Okay, so let's remember the one that is coloured in is 1 beat, and the one that looks like an open circle is 2 beats. They've all got tails. It's the semi-brief, it's the 4 beat that doesn't have a tail. So these are just 1s and 2s. Assume with music, you read it like you would a book. So you read across, and when you've done that, you jump down and you read across the next line. And when you've done that, you jump down and you read across the next line. So this would give you 3 lines of complete music. We read the top line, the second line, and then the third line. Okay. I'm going to clap it for you, and I hope you will do it at home, even though I can't see you or hear you. When we clap a rhythm, or when I clap a rhythm with my students, I like to show the difference between when we're doing rests and when we are holding on notes, because that can become very important. So if you're going to do a 2 beat note, I would encourage you to go 1 and hold for 2. Keep your hands tight together to show that you are still holding onto your note. If you were to do a rest, you would open your hands to show that nothing is happening. So we might go 1 and then off for 1. Or we will go 1 and then hold for 2 or hold for 3, however many you need. So let's have a look at Twinkle Twinkle. So we're starting top left where it says 4/4. Hopefully you'll be familiar with the words anyway. I chose the most famous song I could think of other than Happy Birthday. And I will clap it for you and show you how it works. So I'll count you in 4. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, hold. How I wonder what you are, hold. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, hold. And as you can see, those places where I was holding that 2 beat note, that extra beat, that's where the pauses would naturally come when singing the tune. So you would go twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, wouldn't you? And that's where you would breathe. And that's where you would pause. And actually what you've been doing all this time is holding a 2 beat note without realizing it. Okay, so that is a very, very simple way of demonstrating how a rhythm can make a piece more interesting. I'm going to go back here and I put a note to myself. I want to just show you a brief trick. If you were going to go further in this course with me, one of the weeks we actually work on how to read and sing a line of music when it jumps all over the place. So most people that come to me for reading music lessons, whether it's a part of this course or whether it's privately or whatever, tell me that they're quite good at following a line of music, providing that it just does this, like a sort of snake. You know, you follow it in choir and they say, if it goes up a bit, I go up a bit. And if it goes down a bit, I go down a bit. And that's what most of my community singers come to me doing. That's fair enough. But, you know, what happens if you're going up and down a little bit and suddenly the music's gone up there? You know, where is up there? How do we know how to get up there, how far to go to carry on with our little snake up there, maybe? So one of the things we do talk about in the course is easy ways we can make those leaps. And they might not be perfect, but they'll give you more of a sort of ballpark idea of whereabouts-ish in your voice you should be heading next, you know, sort of how far up that leap is going to be. But the other thing I say is if you get sent something at home right now and you're anxious to work on it, you can't remember what the conductor said, you were streaming with 50,000 people somewhere in, you know, out in Mongolia, and you don't know what they said, then the first thing to do is to work on the rhythm. And using those skills I just showed you with holding on for long beats and opening your hands for rests. And I just want you to have a look at me while I show you the top line of that choir music on page 5? Sam, don't you dare guess it. Didn't I teach you enough? So what we're going to be doing, we're looking at Farewell Blessing again at the top of page 5. This is the soprano line. So as you can see, the word may has 2 beats. If you want, get your pencil, write 2 above it. Your is 1 beat. Hearts is 2 beats. B is 1 beat. Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Then loving and honest, where? All 1 beat notes, because they're all black ones with tails. Yep. Ev, the ev of ever, is 2 beats. 1 beat. You, 2 beats. May, 1 beat. Rome, 3 beats. Okay? You could probably do that now. You could look back on the page before. You could check out the basic note values that I told you all the way back at the start of the session, and you could write those values above those notes. So that means that the top line sounds like this. You get may, 2, your hearts, 2, be loving and honest, wherever you may roam, 2, 3. Okay, but by doing this a few times, if you were on your own at home with that may your hearts be loving and honest, well, you've already got an idea that it's going to be a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And if you've ever been in a choir where you have finished a concert with Rutter, Lord bless you and keep you, if you've ever done that as your finisher, that's what kind of piece this is. So it's got that sort of lovely, heartwarming, send you off on your way message, which is why the lyrics are in that sort of vein. But now you should have an idea that it's going to be, may your hearts be. Okay, and you can do that, and you can figure that out yourself just by counting through those rhythms and clapping it slowly until you build it up and until you get the hang of it when you're practicing at home. So I'm going back over to page 6. And I want you to have a look at exercise 2. Now this is just a silly one. And this is a bit of well, not a trick, but of a joke question. So it says, can you name this famous tune by clapping it? And the quickest way to think of it, to get the rhythm into your head, is to look at those little quavers, those little 8 notes that are tied together, and say them as quick. Call them quick. So you would get quick, quick, slow. Okay? Rather than going half, half. Half, half is hard to say and to work out, but quick, quick, slow. Okay, and if you did that a few times over, you might be able to name this song. It does begin like Jingle Bells. Lots of people have said Jingle Bells. And I must admit, the first time I did this was at Christmas, and I had a really hard time convincing them all that it wasn't Jingle Bells. What you've recognized there, Maria, is the fact that the first 2 together add up to the sum of the second one. So it goes jingle bells, jingle something else, and then it doesn't work. Almost. Well done if you spotted that for the first time. Does anybody have any idea what that is? You know what, I might not even tell you yet because there's a big delay, isn't there? So exercise 3 on the bottom of the page. Let's put a bit of this into practice. So you're lucky because I can't see you, so I'm going to clap and hope you're clapping along with me. We're going to do just the top line first in exercise 3. And the reason that you would know to stop is because of that big, thick black line at the end. So that's not like when we did Twinkle Twinkle, when there was just a singular line and we went straight through and we kept going. In this case, there is a thin line and a big, thick black line. And that is going to tell you to stop at the end of the first line of music. That's another thing we cover on our course, is reading all the bits and pieces around the music on the page. What are all the other signs and symbols and words actually telling you to do, which is quite useful. So exercise 3, top line. I'm going to count you in 4 counts. Okay, and then I'm going to clap it out loud and you can do it along with me. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3. Off. Don't forget, hands open at the end to show that nothing is happening. You are off. You're taking a breather. You are letting the altos have a go. Okay. I will do that one more time so you can have another go at it. 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3. Off. There you go. That's the top line. If you're doing it at home, imagine that's your piece you've been sent by your conductor, and you go, that's way too much for me to get right first off. Do it a bar at a time. Slow it right down. Just go, okay, first bar, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I've got that right. Second bar, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then add the 2 bars together. Don't feel you have to do it at your goal speed right away. You don't run couch to 5K and start off with 5K. Or if in my case, you don't run couch to 5K and start at all. But the point is, don't try and run before you can walk. Okay, second line. This is also in 4, so I'm going to count you in 4. This time the rhythms are mixed up just a little. So after 4 counts, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, off, off. 1, 2, and 3, off. 1, 2, off, off. 1 and 2 and 3, off. Yeah, hopefully that's beginning to make sense, which would be wonderful. I will do that one again for you. Here we go. This is the second line for the second time. 2, 3, go. 1, 2, off, off. 1, 2, and 3, off. 1, 2, off, off. 1 and 2 and 3, off. And notice when I'm doing those quick notes, those quavers, those eighth notes, I'm not saying 1, 1. I'm saying 1 and 2 and. Yeah, that makes much more sense because you can work out that one beat is being divided into that one and that one. 1 and 2 and. That's a great way to count quavers. Finally, bottom line. Okay, 4 counts and we're in again. Just a bit more of a mixed up rhythm. 1, 2, here we go. 1 and 2 and off. 1, 2, 3, hold for 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, off. That was a tricky one. It was a bit, it got a bit confusing, I think, towards the end of the third full bar, the third measure, where we had those 2 quick ones suddenly picking up into the last bar. Okay, so let's do that one more time. Here we go. So from the start, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, hold. 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3. Okay, never realize the difference in the 2-beat and the 4-beat rest. Good exercise. Oh, well, there you go. See, the 4-beat is the heavy one. That's the one that's sunk underneath, sunk in the mud. You know what? I'm going to say something else about that while you've got me talking about 4-beat rests and 2-beat rests. Can you just very briefly, before we do the last exercise, just go back to the very, very first page of the worksheet for me, where I first showed you that typical notation for a choir. Oh, Monica, that was easy. That's because you practiced. That's what it is. You know what you're doing now. It's brilliant. Have a look at that, that full choir music on the very first page. And remembering what we've just talked about, 4-beat rests and 2-beat rests. Look at the start of the soprano part, or the start of the alto part, or any bar of the tenor or bass part. What do you notice about the rest in that bar? How many beats is the rest worth that's in all of the tenor and bass at that point? By the way, the tenor and bass, they do come in a bit. They're just having a rest to start with. They're just not singing at the very, very beginning of it. So that's the first question I'm putting out to you about that one. What do you notice about the length of the rest in each of those empty bars. And while you're thinking about that, I will tell you the answer to name that tune, which was in exercise 2. Okay, somebody very, very cleverly said it's like Jingle Bells. I will clap it for you while you think about those rests. This is exercise 2. It sounds like this. Okay, I will leave you thinking about that a second. Maria, you are on fire tonight. You said it's a 4. It is. It's a 4-beat rest. Absolutely. We're talking about that real choir music again. So 4-beat rest, but if your eyes were paying attention, you will notice there are only 3 beats in each bar. Remember I told you about that time signature at the beginning? I said 3/4 means 3 beats in a bar. So why would you have a 4-beat rest in a bar that can only take 3 beats? And that is because it's a sneaky little trick that we musicians have. You can do that to mean whole bar rest. You can put a 4-beat rest into a 3-beat bar because it tells the musician, take the whole bar off. Okay, so it's a really shorthand way on music scores. It's a really shorthand way of showing, particularly in this case, looking at the tenor and bass, that they are just being quiet for all of those bars. You don't have to count 4, you just count an entire bar, however long that might be. Annette, you have got my gold star this evening. It's the William Tell Overture. It is da-da-dum, 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 dum. And if you know me, you've done my warm-ups, it's Johnny's Got a Head Like a Ping Pong Ball, which was one of our favourite Sing Out Strong warm-ups last summer when I was still leading rehearsals. Dun, da-da-dun, da-da-dun, dun, dun. Yeah, but it's da-da-dum, 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 dum, dum. Johnny's Got a Head Like a Ping Pong Ball. It is William Tell. Well done. Okay, we're on the very last page. Page 7, ladies and gentlemen. This is where you are going to do a very brief little bit of singing, and I'm going to do a bit of croaking from my end. So exercise 4 says, sing your way through these examples that move by step. Notice that this time there are different note values lengths to contend with. So I remember we talked about how it's quite nice when music just moves up one or moves up another or back one. So I've deliberately written these 2 little tunes to do that up and down. But what I want you to notice is where the 1 beats and the 2 beats and the 4 beats come in. So the top line has a treble clef. So if you are a soprano or an alto or a nice comfortable tenor, you will be able to sing this at pitch. This is the middle C at the beginning. La, there's middle C. You could have told me that. You could have started with your G clef and counted backwards if you had the time and the inclination, and you could have found that that's middle C. And it sounds like, la, there's middle C again. Now, if you look, it goes C, C, then it moves up, D, D, moves up again, E, E, and then it falls back to a D, and it hangs there for 2 counts. So let's just do those 2 bars. Remember, I told you there is no shame in breaking it down into smaller parts and in slowing it right down. So there's your C to start with. So it goes. La, 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 and then 1, 2. Yeah, and everybody paused in the right place. And then the second part of it does 2 C's, up to 2 D's, and then boom, 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 down the stairs. So the second part, la, 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 going down the stairs, and we pause on that last note, and that would be a 1, 2. So if we were clapping it, we'd have gone bom, 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 1, 2, and then we would have repeated that rhythm. Okay, so all of that together. If you're a guy, could I recommend you do it down there? So I'll play it at both octaves. So 2, 3, 4. La, 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 1, 2. And then downstairs, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, and that's how you find your basic shape of your melody and count it when you're on your own home. Finally, let's do one down the bottom for the guys. That's down there, that's down there. Very, very low. So we've got a 1, 2 on a bottom C. Remember, particularly if you're a bass, you're going to be using this clef a lot more. Well, you're only going to be using this clef if you're a bass. So 1, 2. Then moving up the steps. And then we've got 4 counts on that E. So you're going to need to hold that, move back, 2 Ds, and fall back to a C for 4 counts. I'm not so worried about you getting your notes right, your melody right, your pitches right at the moment. I'm on about you getting that rhythm right and putting it into practice, using it to help you find your way around a piece. So there's the bottom one. I'll do it up here at the same time. So the bottom line, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and that is how you follow the shape of the music by working out the rhythm for yourself. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you for joining. I'm glad you enjoyed the session. We're just about wrapping up anyway, everybody. So hopefully you have learned some of the basics tonight, and you would be able to, not do everything straight away perfectly, but, most people can't, even after as many years as I've been playing the piano. What I want you to be able to do is feel a bit more confident when you do see a project that you fancy doing online and you think, oh, I don't know, there's a lot of independent learning for that one, and you think, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to download the music, listen to the learning tracks, and I'm going to use what Emma has taught me to work out the rhythm and the melody myself anyway. Okay. If you have enjoyed this and you think that the Reading Music for Singers course might be something you can benefit in, then my next round of courses starts on Sunday, May the 16th. I'm running a beginner course at 2:30 p.m. British time, and I'm running an intermediate course at 4 p.m. British time. Okay, if you enjoyed it, if you want to sign up and take the course, it's 6 weeks of 1 hour a week, and it's just £5 a session. So that's £30 for the whole course, and you can book onto that, or you can express an interest by going back onto the website, the Sing Out Strong website where you downloaded this. In fact, I'm going to put the link in there again. On the bottom, it says something like express an interest or register for this or book on or something like that. And it says which course are you interested in, beginning or intermediate. You just click on beginner and it will come through to my inbox, and then I will contact you myself to sort out all the logistics and the bits and pieces. And then every week you would be sent a worksheet like this. We would go through it together, but you would be on Zoom, which means you could actually sort of go, Emma, blah, 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 and you could ask me questions as we're going along. Thank you all for joining me tonight. It's been lovely to see some names I recognise and some old friends from around the world. I hope it's been helpful for you. I hope you've enjoyed it. And as ever, if you have any questions, problems, stick them on the Facebook page. Email me, hello@singoutstrong.co.uk. And thank you, Lena. You know what the best thing about teaching music is that, unlike some languages, the rules in music are the rules. So once you've learned them, there's nothing else. I remember I'm going to offend all the French speakers around here now, but I always think of learning French at school, where they went, these are the rules, apart from when this, when that, when the other. And bear in mind also that I'm Welsh, and the constant number of mutations and things in the Welsh language where they tell you rules and then they change them. But music, those are the rules. And so it should be nice and easy once you've got the time to sit down and have a look at it and learn it. Anyway, if you're interested, let me know, send me a message, comment in the SOS group if you're in the virtual choir group. I'm always hanging around there. It's been lovely to spend the evening with you all. Thank you, everybody. Good night.